Hey folks, take two. While I was describing something, I reached over to hit the blue book and my Bluetooth keyboard was there and it stopped the video. So I'm starting over again. I hate doing that. Okay, exotic items. Part number 10, the last one. Small enchantments, strange mostali, toys or technology, just silly artifacts, the blood of the gods. These are all exotic type items, right? They can add to reputation, but they can also attract unwanted attention. GMs, as GM, we want to weigh the consequences of having these kinds of things available. But they put this stuff in here to give you a feeling for the kinds of things that might be available. Okay, the first thing is magic crystals. Just like we talk about magic crystals in the GM Adventure Guide, Adventure book, Game Master Adventures book. There we go. Talk about rune metals and magic crystals in there, so that's pretty much the same. So magic crystals come, these are the blood of the gods, right? So not affected by divine intervention, and they're also indestructible. Okay, so they come in two varieties. Spirit trapping or power storing and powered. Oh, pardon me. Spirit trapping / power storing and powered. Two kinds, right? Spirit trapping, power storing, and powered. Sorry, I got that confused again. So first thing you want to do is determine the nature of your crystal. And I've got a nice little chart here. It's the same one in here. It's the same one in RQ2. But it says to determine whether a crystal is powered or not, one must attempt to attune to it. If it's a power storing crystal, that ends up with the magic point inside it. If it's a powered crystal, you have to overcome its power versus power, right? And there's a whole section on this later on. So why we discuss it now instead of later on, I'm not sure. This is talking about attunement now as well. So first you have to give up any attunement to crystals you already have because you can only be attuned to one powered crystal at a time. If it turns out that the new crystal is not a powered crystal, you can reattune the old one with no cost at 100%. Or rather, with no chance of failure. And even though you can only be attuned to one powered crystal, you can have an infinite number of power crystals, power storing crystals. And this / naming convention stuff and using the word POW, words mean things. So this can get very confusing. And I don't know if it was on accident, leftover verbiage, or intentional. And for intentional, that it would conflict with some of the rules. I'll get to that. So, 5% of crystals are flawed, 24% of them are powered, all the rest are power storing / spirit trapping. 2d6 plus 3 magic points it can hold. Okay, so 70% of these things they call the empty now. No intrinsic power of their own, and that's the key word: intrinsic power of their own. However, these empty crystals can be used to contain spirits or store magic points. Give me access to stuff. Each of the storage crystals has a limit of magic points of 2d6 plus 3. However, that limit doesn't apply to the power of any spirits that you put into the crystal. Okay. Two primary uses: binding a spirit, POW storage. Words mean things, right? Okay, binding a spirit. If you don't want to put it into an animal, make it a familiar, one must find or buy a spirit trapping crystal. Not true. You can create a spirit binding matrix. 2 points of power, right? So you could sacrifice 2 of your own points of power, or you can only pay 400 lunars to have somebody else sacrifice those 2 points of power and make the matrix for you, and then instead of having to retrain those 2 points back for 1,000. I have an issue with that, sorry. Okay. a bound spirit, the binder has access to the power of that spirit. And it has a little piece here about the spirit itself can't cast spells on its own or do anything independently unless the binder attempts to control more spirits than the charisma allow, because there's a whole subroutine of you can have bound to you so many spirits based upon your charisma. And if you overcome that, then things start getting loose. But if it's bound and you can access its power for your use, power, seriously? No, magic points. For your use, can you also access their spells for your use? I think so. If you've got a bound spirit that's got magic points and spells, you can then use both of those things. That's what I think. It says here if a bound spirit's power is reduced to 0, it's destroyed. How do you reduce a creature's power? I'm not aware of any way of reducing power. Technically, there should be a tap power spell out there somewhere, but you don't decrease power of anything. Do they mean magic points? If magic points is reduced to 0, the spirit's destroyed? I wouldn't say destroyed, but I would say it goes back to the spirit plane. I want to say there's something about that here later on as well, going to 0. Okay. Power storage, POW. The owner of a power storing crystal may store magic points within it up to the limit it can accommodate and use as desired. These magic points can only be used once. Each point is gone until the owner replaces it, just like a magic point matrix. But a magic point matrix, if you put 2 points of power into that, that's 2d10 magic points, not 2d6 plus 3, right? So what I like, though, is power storage. This thing has power. If you were to look on the use spirit site, you would see this power that it has, which is 2d6 plus 3. I think it regenerates its own magic points. That's what I think. It goes on to say that these magic points can be used to cast spells, but do not count in magic resistance. Magic points don't count for magic resistance in any form or fashion, ever. Power does, though. If you've got a shaman with a fetch, the shaman can use the fetch's power for spirit combat, but not for resisting spells, though. Yeah, you never use magic points for resisting spells. It's all power versus power, right? Typo? Leftover from RQ2 or something else? I have not decided about this on myself yet. I'm kind of thinking no, but I do like the fact that it has power. It's a power storage. It has power. Magic points regenerate. I like that. I'm going to keep that piece. Okay. If an adventurer owning a crystal with a spirit bound in it is killed, the spirit returns to spirit plane immediately. Same thing from the binding enchantment deal. It's the life force of the binder that keeps the spirit in this plane. I thought it was bound into something. Right? Now, if you release it to use and you die, yeah, it's gone. Right? And in the enchantment section, it talks about generally, well, it says some entities have knowledge, right? Spells, or abilities, I haven't really looked into that, which the wielder can use while the creature is bound. I like that. But usually it's some kind of thing like a wraith or an elemental or a healing spirit that you have to release to have it do its thing, right? Same thing here, I suppose. But really talk about releasing spirits to do their thing here. Just that you can access this power for your use. Interesting. I'll have to dig a little more into this binding stuff because these crystals, right? Blood of the gods need to be much more than a 2-point matrix we create, right? It's got to be different. It needs to be more. And I think having power and regenerative magic points is a significant increase factor. The binding spirits thing, I'm just not quite sure yet on that. Okay, powered crystals. Attuning a powered crystal, which we just talked about on the page before, right? Well, a little more detail. It takes a whole week to do. Power against power of the crystal. We already talked about that. However, if you fail, it also doesn't say. It almost sounds like just a one-time resistance roll, a single resistance roll of your power against this power. Instead of reducing it down to 0 magic points kind of thing, like we do with other power versus power rolls. Like casting magic. There we go. Just have to overcome. There we go. That's it. Takes a full week to do. If you fail, you lose power. Generally 1 point. Could lose 2 or even 3. That feels a bit excessive to me. But I think they may have pulled a copy of this kind of table from the old RQ2 power increase table from previous experience. If you have a character with previous experience, they could increase their power by 1, 2, or 3 points. Tuning a crystal also counts as successful magic for the purpose of getting a power gain roll. Good to go. Okay, the different kinds of attributes of crystals. Combination crystal. Roll twice and combine. When you combine, though, you also add the power of both those crystals, POW, together for your power versus power roll to attune. Extra power. This crystal has an extra dose of power by 1d6. So there's an extra d6 of power. There's a powered crystal, right? And that power then is a factor in the effects that it provides for us. Next one is the healing focus. It doubles the effect of healing spells. So if it has a power of 3, and you cast a healing 1, 2, or 3 into it, or through it, then what comes out is a healing 2, a healing 4, or a healing 6. Still only casts you 1, 2, or 3 points, magic points to cast, but it magnifies it. Sensitivity. These crystals make 1-point detection spells free, and 2-point detection spells only cost 1 magic point. You need to know the detection spell, though, first. It says a crystal can aid in the casting of detection spells the number of times a day equal to its power. So it holds its power worth of castings, right? And I just got my little note here that it recovers a single casting in power over 24 hours. So over a 24-hour period, we regenerated all of them if you use them all, kind of thing. But it's a rolling thing, like magic points continue to increase, 1 quarter every 6 hours kind of thing, right? That's how I interpreted this number of times per day thing. Okay, twice power yielding. The crystal yields twice their power per day the adventurers use. The crystal regains magic points separately from the adventurer at the same speed of humans do. Okay, so this kind of taps into conflict with my power storage idea. Power yielding is 1d8. So it's got 1d8 power. It will regenerate twice that per day. So it'll have 6. It'll have 2d8. If it had a power of 4, would have 8 magic points in it to regenerate by themselves naturally. And here it is. If magic points of the crystal are reduced to 0 by misuse or emergency, the crystal is effectively destroyed, becoming a dull pebble. So that kind of stomps on my power storage idea, because the power difference between the two is significant, right? So, oh well. These must be typos left over from RQ2 where we use power to cast magic instead of magic points to cast magic. I still got to find a difference between this and matrices, though. There needs to be a difference. Okay, power enhancing. These double the effectiveness of variable strength spells, except for healing, because the healing one's already got his own thing. So if you know Blade Sharp 2, you cast Blade Sharp 2 through it, it becomes Blade Sharp 4. Still only costs 2 magic points. Spell reinforcing. These add 1 point of power per point of power of the crystal to the characteristic power of the user when they use it as an attack spell against the power of a target. So if it's a power force spell reinforcing, and you cast Befuddle on somebody, your power is effectively 4 points higher for that power versus power roll. And this is, I want to say, a D8 power storing, power reinforcing. Oh, it's just a D4. So, 1 to 4 points possible. Yeah, that's kind of weak. Okay. But again, this power cannot be drawn on to cast spells. It's only a power against. There's no magic points. It's just power. Yep. Okay. Spell strengthening. Every magic point used in this spell, this crystal will add 1 up to its limit in magic points. This is used for getting past counter magic and shield spells. So it's free extra magic points for casting up to its limit, which is its power. Right, its power is its limit. That's the function, and this is 1d4 as well. But it doesn't decrease the power in the crystal at all, of course, because we don't use power in RQG. We use magic points. In RQ2, we use power to cast spells. So there may have been an issue where that was an issue. Okay, spell resisting. Just the opposite of the spell strengthening, right? The power of the crystal is added to your magical defense. So your power, effective power, against power versus power spell, gets this extra bonus to it, 1 to 4 points. Okay. Spirit supporting crystal. Each point of the crystal's power adds 10% to the user's spirit combat skill for purposes of both attack and defense. And this statement is also in the RQ book, right? Both attack and defense. Spirit combat is an opposed roll. There is no attack and defense. It's just an opposed roll. Okay, spell storing. Each point of this crystal counts as 1 charisma point for possessing spirit magic spells or bound spirits, just like having access to extra charisma. And there are 1d4 points of that as well. Flawed crystals. They have the taint of chaos, right? One might be impossible to attune no matter what its apparent power is. You don't know what its power is until you attune to it. I don't know. Okay, so, or it could be a power decreasing crystal. It could be possible to de-attune once it is attuned. Of course, every flawed crystal should be different. That's what chaos is. But flawed crystals may not be wholly bad. For example, one may permanently drain 1d4 power from an adventurer, but then bestow some worthwhile power on them. Or it might possess one of the other powers attributed to the other crystals. Even though a permanent subtraction, but it still gives you this benefit, right? Okay, minor enchantments. This is kind of cool. This is one of the first things. No, maybe it was one of the first things that I started trying to collect is different kinds of magic items in RuneQuest, so I get a feel for what kind of magic items do we make in RuneQuest. So some of these items may be found in the more exclusive markets or may be passed down as heirlooms. And we got some specific things. Strange, enchanted items are rare, but not unheard of. A city pointer, it's a statue, rotates towards home. A constrictor ward, it wraps around your arm and it squeezes on you when somebody approaches you, like when you're asleep and you want to know that kind of thing. A devouring sack made out of a troll's stomach. Anything that's size 4 below, that's reasonable, put it inside the bag. It doesn't say how long it takes, but it's digested, it's gone. A duck bill, right? Obviously, any duck any Derules that sees it, you get instant enmity from them, right? That's an obvious thing. But it provides +1 to your dex and +10 to your swim. Empty purse. It's tied to a matching strong box. Any money you put into the empty purse goes in the strong box as long as within range. Standard range is 160 kilometers, but real expensive ones get up to like 6 kilometers. Only takes coins. And it says it doesn't recognize coin is outside the local area. I'm not sure why that is. A hover rock. It's a rock floating behind you, follows you around, but it's got flat faces on it. You can engrave enchantments. It does count as a crystal for attunement purposes. And it has a power of 1d6. That's interesting. A Mostali Gemsey. Ground crystals bound together, right? Glasses. Gives you Farsi 4. Only 4. For anything within 10 centimeters. Gives you plus 25% on your evaluate and plus 10 to any craft skill that requires fine eyesight and manipulation. Open binding is a bronze belt buckle in the shape of a moon rune that adds 10 to your sacred time illumination roll. Cool. Orlanth's hair, small bundle of fine red threads that, when placed on a Vingan's head, will grow and slowly replace the need for any hair or feather dye. They say feather because of ducks, Vingan ducks. The growth will take about a year, and when it's complete, the hair matches what was already there in texture and growth pattern. It's just that it's permanently red now. And any enchantment fades. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Maybe the enchantment of the threads placed in the hair? I don't know. Skin plates. These are leather padding that can be strengthened by spending 1 magic point to add an extra armor point to the worn location without adding an encumbrance. Leather padding, you put a magic point into it, it gives you a piece of armor. Lasts 2 minutes. Kind of like an automatic protection 1 spell. Although this is in addition to any other magic or armor that you have on. So it's kind of a bonus. Common enchantments, a ward that shouts when night is moved. A scent patch that surrounds you with a smell. An axe that gives you plus 10 to your earth rune for runic inspiration. A one-use sleep spell. Earplugs that give you plus 25 to listen. Keeps food fresh. Tactic is plus 25 to ride. Why these are 25s and not 20s? I'm not sure how I feel about that. Charm gives you plus 5 to dodge, but minus 10 to climb. Although they say add, like it's a bonus. Clothing that negates a level of cold or exposure. Directional light matrix. Cast light in 30 meters, but over 90 degrees. Enchantment makes a bland meal if it tastes good. A fertility charm increases your birth child rate. A blade that adds plus 25 to your peaceful cut. I like that. Meditational symbols adds 10 to your dance and worship. When attuned, costing 1d6 magic points over a day. Oh, it speeds up meditation attempts. Reducing the time by half. There we go. That's what that is. A beard that gives plus 25 to your sing while you're wearing it. Armor with the face of a demon on it. Adds 10 to your intimidation. Cool stuff, right? Wakatopus gloves. Strongest gloves in Genitella. Resist high temperatures. Okay. Do they maybe protect your hands from things besides fire? White Lady lenses. Pure white quartz. Okay, and there's a little piece of, well, I'll read, okay. In the shape of a lens, said to have formed from one of the White Lady's tears when she was sought to cure gods wounded by chaos. Lens is used to focus the rays of the sun into an intense point of light to treat open wounds and to cauterize flesh. Also counters poisons and diseases. Adds 1 to your con multiplier when you're resisting disease, and increases your con by 1.2 for resisting poison. A lot of stuff there. A wind rose. Wind disc 12 with the 12 winds, although sometimes just 8, used for navigation. Sailors use to determine their vessel's orientation. They are entirely non-magical. Okay. Wing of Mercy. Single white butterfly wing. It allows anyone who touches it to cast the Heal Wound rune spell without spending any rune points. Just the magic points that you try to put through it. Once it's used, the Wing of Mercy immediately flutters away to find a new owner. Extraordinary Gems. Color Me New. Wearing this piece of Color Me New accounts as showy magical items for charisma bonus. Daka Fall Light. Gives the attuned bear plus 25% to spirit combat. If they sacrifice regularly to the ancestors and give due attention to the dead. Green Cube. Sacred for Arnaldan rights. When you attune to it, it prevents knockback. If broken open, whatever is inside the gem comes out. On an Ot 1, it produces a protective axe daughter. who swears herself to the nearest Ernaldan friend or foe for a year's service. Oh, a roll of 2 to 20, Teeny Baby Serpent Awaken, 21 to 100 is another gem, or any gem on the list, but can also have a handful of grain. Lancromine Mask. Mask. Mark. Lancromine Mark. Rubbed lightly over a written surface and then a plain surface, it translates the marks from the written surface onto the plain surface. Lodestone. Reliably point in a particular direction. Mostali Viewplate. Gives the effect of Farsi 2. Sunstone. Glows like a candle, but must be worn openly. It is also enchanted. Also acts as enchanted gold. So when a light-based spell is cast, it doubles the radius of the illumination. However, once the stone is covered or hidden, it dies. 3 dot. 3 black spheres. They always seem to pull weakly towards the center point of where they are. Trail stones. Gems of various colors. Formed when movement gods are wounded and then staggered away. The gems always crawl away from miners, but when attuned, they allow +1 to your movement and +5 to all agility skills. A Vengeance Black. It's a lumpy black ore with golden strands within it. An oath sworn on a vengeance block, maybe it should be block, attunes the owner and causes the gold to glow, and the black begins to devour it. The gold will be gone on the next freeze day of Death Week, but until then, any skill rolls for actions that are directly used towards fulfilling your oath by the owner get a +10. And that is the end of weapons and equipment. Red Book of Magic will be next, but it may be a while because I'm like on C spells now. Happy gaming.